If I could ask, what was the number we sang right before that last one? Follow you all of my days. What number is that?
15.
15, okay. That's going to play in a little bit tonight. I appreciate you leading that. I didn't tell you to because I didn't even realize it was in the book. But I appreciate you getting on the same wavelength tonight that I'm on. It's good to be with you again. We enjoyed being here yesterday and enjoy being here again tonight. We're thankful for another opportunity to study together God's Word as we examine the theme, the possibilities are endless. We looked yesterday at how there are certain times when people say something's impossible, but that God finds a way. Whether it's in today's day being a providential way or whether it was in Bible times through miraculous ways, that God has always found a way. We also asked the question of whether or not we understood suffering from the first century glasses, if you will. If you put the first century glasses on, if we could truly understand suffering. We then asked last night what we were not willing to give up for Christ. And what I would like to try to do the rest of this week is look at a few key examples in Scripture of Bible men, Bible women, and Bible people that had instances where the possibilities did not seem so endless, they seemed impossible. And as we look tonight, I want to examine Daniel, the man who lived for God with the heart of a lion. As you look at Daniel's life, you see a man that is a great and godly individual. Time and time again, as Daniel's life is given to us through the book of Daniel, you do not see an individual that is a sinful man. You see an individual that constantly serves God. You look at Daniel chapter 1, and you find a man that is in captivity. And in fact, most commentators, most notes that I've read would suggest that Daniel's about 17 years old when captivity begins. He will be in captivity for the entirety of captivity. And Daniel is a very young boy when he is taken. We asked the question yesterday if we had any 17-year-olds, and I think again it would be prudent to ask if there are any 17-year-olds to raise their hand, or anyone close to it. Okay, he's that age, 17 years old, taken to captivity. And I do know for sure that Daniel did not have the life of a typical 17-year-old. I was looking today as we were at the mall, walking around, and noticed how everyone was in their own little world. Understandably so, there's nothing wrong with that. But I started to realize, Daniel might have been in his own world at 16, do his own thing, do what he's been raised to do, turn 17, his life is drastically different. He's taken by the Babylonians into captivity. And the very first time you see Daniel, he's told to go against his God. Daniel, you don't need to eat your diet, you need to eat our diet. Daniel says, I will not. I love the book of Daniel for a few reasons, because it provides key verses for Daniel himself, and it also provides key verses for the book. Daniel himself has two key verses for his own life. The first is found in Daniel chapter 1 and verse 8, when Daniel purposed in his heart that he would not sin against God. Here is a man that is being told you cannot do what God would have you to do, and Daniel says, oh no, I will do it. I will do what God would have me to do. I will be what God would have me to be. And so he tells this governor or whoever it was that told him that we need you to follow this, so advisor of the king, I need you to go to the king and ask for a competition. Okay? What competition? You let your men eat their diet and let me and my men eat our diet. And whoever looks better at the end of 10 days will go with that. Okay. Now if you read the King James Version, it can sometimes be confusing in its old language. But I promise you it's not hard to understand with a dictionary or even with some gumption looking into it. The word countenance, it means face. And so when you see the word countenance, it means that the faces of the men that had done the diet of the king looked very, very poor. Ladies, when you get sick, you don't really want to go out, do you? You don't really want to put on the makeup. And even the younger ladies, do you want to go on a date when you're sick and when you look sick No, 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 no. I've never seen a girl before say, well, I am sick as a dog, but my boyfriend's going to be here in about 30 minutes, so I guess it'll just have to do. No, no, you want to look your best. And even tonight, you want to look your best. You want to be the best person you can be. You don't just go out of the house looking like any old thing. When you go to the mirror, you find things that need to be changed, and you change them. Maybe you need to shave. Maybe you need to comb your hair. Maybe you need to just take a shower to get ready for the day. Whatever it is, you do what needs to be done. And if you look in the mirror and you see that your face looks off, you can know a few things. You're not feeling very well, and it's noticeable. These men, the diet that they were eating, it was noticeably changing their physical health. You look at Daniel and his men, and they look just fine. You get to Daniel chapter 2, and Daniel is a man that is starting to work his way up. And the king has a dream that he doesn't even know. And so he asks his wise men, and I will put that in quotations the whole time I mention them. His wise men are brought before him, and his astrologers, and all of the wonderful men that the Babylons had. And he says, tell me my dream. Can you tell us what the dream was? No, no, no. You need to tell me what the dream was and what it meant. I'm sorry. Somebody tell me what I dreamed last night. No one knows but me and the Lord. And if I happen to tell people, then they know. But if I woke up the next day and said, man, I cannot remember what I dreamed last night. It's not like I could ask my wife, can you tell me what I dreamed last night? And she'll know. And so King Nebuchadnezzar, not only does he ask, he then makes a decree that states, if you can't, you're going to die. I will admit, I agree with the king here. Because if you're a wise man, if you're an astrologer and you're supposed to know these things, no problem, right? Let's be honest for a minute. The faith healers that are in the world today, if they can't heal a physical type of sickness, they're not legitimate. There was never a time in the New Testament or in the Old Testament where someone with a miraculous ability could not heal someone. And what I mean by that is those that were serving God, that were doing what they were supposed to do, when they were asked to perform a miracle, it was simple. They could do it, no problem. And we're going to look at that tomorrow night in more depth and more detail on even Christ's power, where He could speak and something would stop instantaneously. But these astrologers, these wise men, if they're so wise, they should know. And so it really shouldn't be a problem. But it trickles down to Daniel, and Daniel's told what's going to happen to them. And put yourself in Daniel's shoes for a moment. Here are the captors telling you that they're going to be put to death if they cannot tell the dream. Wouldn't you just want to be quiet and let them die? Wouldn't you just want to just keep your mouth shut for a little while longer? And just say, look, they've done a lot of terrible things to me. I'm going to let them die. Daniel put aside pettiness, went to the king, and told the king what his dream was and what it meant. You get to Daniel chapter 3 and you see that, like we talked about last night, Daniel surrounds himself by friends that are godly examples. Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego are his friends, and they are told to bow to a statue, a gold statue, but they do not. And you might be thinking, well, why don't they? Well, I love the fact, and we're going to look at it in detail, their answer. I love how they looked at the king and they told him why they weren't going to bow. And we'll get to their answer in just a little bit later because it ties into Daniel 6 as well. But the king asks them to bow. They say no. They're thrown into the fiery furnace and nothing happens to them. Not even a hair singed. You get to Daniel chapter 4 and yet again here is Daniel telling the king of another situation, another dream. And he warns him, Nebuchadnezzar, you're getting too arrogant, too puffed up. Back it down. Back it down. He would not, would be humbled by the Lord, and would act like an animal. You get to chapter 5, and yet again, Daniel is called. I find it funny to me that every time a dream is referred to in the book of Daniel, every time something puzzling occurs, the wise men can't solve it. And I kind of wonder at times, I don't have any scriptural proof for this, but I wonder if when Daniel would write the word wise men in the Greek or in the Hebrew and in the Old Testament, if he would kind of chuckle. Wise men, right. They don't know anything. And they're not able to do what they say they can do. Haven't you ever heard of someone that gave you a deal that was too good to be true? Right? These phone calls you get, you've won a cruise. All you have to do is press 2. Right. If I press 2, I'm going to get a cruise magically. Well, we just need some information from you, right? Like my bank account information. Your social security card, yes? Right. Information that's too good to be true. They're not actually going to do what they say they're going to do. And these wise men cannot do what they say they're going to do. And they always have to call on God. And the man of God, Daniel. Chapter 6. After chapter 5, the writing on the wall is told by Daniel what it means, and Belshazzar dies. Daniel is told in chapter 5 that he would be third in line. And then the Medo-Persians come along at the end of chapter 5, kill Belshazzar, take the kingdom. The Medes and the Persians are now reigning over the captives. And Daniel went from third to next in line in the span of just a few hours. Because Daniel had an excellent spirit in him. And I love this about Daniel because as you look up to this point, things are looking great in Daniel's life. But when things are going well, the storm is coming. The storm is coming. And jealousy is a terrible thing, is it not? Isn't jealousy terrible? The state of feeling jealous. Feeling or showing envy of someone or their achievements and advantages. How sad is it that in the world, jealousy destroys. It destroys. Why are some wars fought? Why are some things done? Why are robberies committed? People are jealous and they're coveting the possessions of another. And they want the possessions of another, so they will do whatever it takes to get them, other than work hard for them. 9 times out of 10, you look at a criminal, and if they had just actually done what they were supposed to do in an office or in a job, they work harder to steal the things than they would if they just worked for it. Jealousy. Sadder still, the Lord's church sometimes allows jealous hearts and intentions to be around. Let's look at jealousy reigning in the church. And you might be thinking for a moment, hold on a second. You've just listed every single asset of the Lord's church. Absolutely I did. Let me explain it to you for a moment. Preachers. Let's say there's a congregation with 2 preachers. And one preacher doesn't get to preach as much as the other. He's not the pulpit minister. Therefore, every time the pulpit preacher stands behind the podium to speak, he seethes. I actually know of a situation where that occurred. And he does not enjoy the fact that he doesn't get to preach. And rather than just focusing on the fact that the Word of God is being presented, he begins to try to find ways to become the pulpit preacher at the congregation where he's currently located, not by moving to another. Sometimes these preachers, they repent, they change their mind, and they go back into what they are supposed to be, just merely servants of God like we talked about last night. But sometimes they won't change. And they cause a division in the church, and sometimes they split a congregation. Jealousy. Let's look at the elders. Okay, well, let's say there's an elder who doesn't feel like he is in charge as much as the other elder. And the other elder is older, he's wiser. Therefore, he knows a little bit more about life. I will not ever suggest anything different than that. I'm 22, I'll be 23 in October. Dustin is older than I am, therefore when he speaks and gives advice, I listen. And if one of you that is older than I am would like to speak and give me some advice, I'm not going to turn it away, unless it's just crazy advice. But if it's not crazy advice, I'll listen. I'll look into what you're saying and take it into an account. But sometimes that is not the mindset with elders. And so the elders can try to do whatever they can to get that elder hated by the congregation. Deacons, it's the same story. But let's talk about the members for a minute. Because this is where the other three really do play a part. Here are the members, and here's a member that they do the Lord's Supper every Sunday. And from the pulpit, the preacher praises them. Now what? Right? I vacuumed today. Preacher didn't say that. I took out the trash last week. The elder didn't mention that. The deacon didn't mention that. Can I say something with all sincerity? Boo-hoo. Please, let's be honest with each other for a minute. Is it so important that I'm recognized for taking out the trash, or is it more important that God is glorified in the process? The best men and women in the church, I'm going to say it, are people you don't even know. Do you know why? Because they're sometimes the hardest working, they get the most done, and they don't even want the credit. But members can sometimes have jealous intentions and jealous hearts. How do we believe we are impressing those that are outside the Lord's body when we cannot even genuinely congratulate those that do better than us in some form or fashion? I remember last year the Houston Texans had Hard Knocks come and do the football training camp show. And they only played one episode on NFL Network, and I was just kind of watching while I was working on something else, and I was watching a scene where two quarterbacks were trying to get the same job. There's only one, but they're both going for it. And the coach tells him, how you do tomorrow is going to dictate everything. It's a really close race. Tomorrow's the deciding factor, and one of them was 4 hours late to practice. Who do you think got the job? And in the interview, where he brought them in and explained to them his decision, his number one reason was, you got to be on time. And the other quarterback threw a hissy fit. Oh, not on camera, but he didn't come to practice that day. You know what? He needs to realize something. He's got to own his mistakes. And if we're outside the Lord's body and we see people inside the Lord's body being so vicious to one another, they're really going to want to join the church, aren't they? They're really going to want to be added to the Lord's body, aren't they? No. There was a man that was once the most miserable individual, and he would talk and just be miserable about anything. And he was lamenting one day that nobody wanted to have a Bible study with him and nobody wanted to come to church with him. To which the preacher replied, why? He said, I don't know, they just don't want to be around me. You think it had something to do with the fact that they might have looked at him and said, he's not happy? Why would I be happy there? We cannot allow jealous people to ruin the image of the church. Did Daniel face these people? You better believe it, Daniel faced these people. Look at Daniel 6, 1 through 2. Here it is, it says, it pleased Darius to set over the kingdom 120 princes, which should be over the kingdom, the whole kingdom, over these 3 presidents, of whom Daniel was first. Daniel's a captive. He's not a Medo-Persian, but he's first in line. Notice this. Here is a man that had the worst situation, and he turned it into something good. I am a big fan of underdog stories. I love it when the theater puts out the sports movies that are about underdogs that won a championship or did something incredible. And in fact, my wife and my in-laws are all big Alabama Crimson Tide fans. I am not. I was not raised to be that. And any time a team is playing them that is an underdog and beats them, there is a part of me that enjoys it. Why? Not because I love Alabama losing as much as I just love seeing an underdog win. Because it's very rare. It It's interesting. I love to watch March Madness just to see the upsets. Because there's always that one upset. Michigan State this year got upset. Badly. And it was very enjoyable. I don't even care about Michigan State. I just enjoyed watching Middle Tennessee beat them. But Daniel's not homegrown. He's an underdog. And here he is, first in the kingdom. In line to reign if necessary. You tell me for a moment, as you look at Daniel 6:3, this Daniel was preferred above the presidents and princes. Why? Why was he preferred above them? Because he really kissed up to the king? And he was just always there and he did anything the king wanted. No. An excellent spirit was in him. It wasn't about him trying to make the king like him. Daniel put his nose to the ground, worked hard, and good things came about because of it. And I've got people today that are very close to my age wanting handouts. Get over it. Nobody gets lucky in life without having to do something. Well, I won the lottery. Did you have to buy the ticket? Did you have to go do something? Yeah, life's the same way. If you want to get money, you got to put something into it. You don't win the lottery every time. And I have to be honest, it bothers me to see certain people look at people my age and categorize us into the millennials and throw us into the same category when I understand that working hard comes with getting good blessings as a part of it. I'm not going to be handed anything in life. I've got to go get it. I've got to go work hard for it. But there are some that just say, give me, give me, give me. We have participation trophies being handed out now instead of people actually having to earn them. Could you imagine the outrage if the Seattle Seahawks had won the Super Bowl back in 2013 and they were handed a trophy and then Denver was handed a trophy right along with them? What are you doing? We don't want to hurt Denver's feelings. Look, they worked really hard to get here too. I mean, the same amount of time and effort you guys put in, they put in. It doesn't matter that you beat them by 30-something points. They put in a lot of work. Not that night. They didn't win. They're not going to get a trophy just for showing up. And we dare not get the mindset that we'll just get paid just for showing up. You've got to work. Daniel said, I'm a captive. I'm just going to do my job. I'm just going to go down and work. I'm going to do what I need to do. You look at Daniel 6:4-5. And the presidents and princes, or the New King James Version, the governors and satraps, they're seeking to find occasion against Daniel concerning the kingdom. But they could find none occasion or fault, for as much as he was faithful, neither was there any error or fault found in him. Here's a man that it's very frustrating to try to trip him up because there's nothing wrong with him. And then they say, we will not find anything against Daniel except we find it against him concerning the law of his God. Can that be said of you tonight? We won't find anything against Dustin except it be against his God. Against Clarence except it be against his God. Against Larry except it be against his God. On and on we could go. Can that be said of you tonight? Can it be said of Michael? We won't find anything against Michael except it be with his God. And as we mentioned, Daniel, he's up for a promotion. And it's because of his excellent spirit. Plays out how the real world works today. Hard work and a great attitude pays off. But there are those that do not have an excellent spirit. These governors and satraps, I really think after reading and believe that they just kind of thought they'd get it because they were Medes and Persians. They were Medo-Persian. We're shoo-in. Wait, Daniel's going to get it. What are you talking about? Why is Daniel going to get it? They're no doubt frustrated that a foreigner is in line for a promotion over them. Perhaps they even thought, we don't even have to work with a good spirit. And you guys have seen this before. You go to a restaurant and you see someone who's worked about 9 hours and they're just not very happy. And it kind of ruins the whole dinner. And I understand they're tired, but they're still on the clock. They still have a job to do. Look, there have been nights at the Memphis School of Preaching, and I know Dustin can admit, there have been nights at BIM where it's 4 in the morning, and you're pushing it. There's an assignment that you thought was done, but the format got all messed up and you got to go back and fix it. Or you lost it and now you got to redo it. Didn't realize it was lost until the night that you go to print it. I kid you not, I deleted the first 6 months of my school notes. You really should be thankful you didn't see me when I figured that out. I was very mad at myself. Thankfully, I was able to find all but the first summer school notes that I took. And so I have them at least. And then I started looking at them after I found them and was, I really take notes better than I did then. I don't want these anymore. But I was mad. But there are nights when you just have to do it. It's just got to get done, right? It comes with being a worker. And there are those that don't have an excellent spirit, and they're going to seek occasion to destroy Daniel. And I want to make this point. Up to this point, what have I said that's negative about Daniel? Nothing. And the governors and satraps, remember, they even understood this because they said, except we find it against him concerning the law of his God, we're not going to find any occasion against this Daniel. So people will want to destroy you when you live and serve God. But people will sometimes be fooled. People can be fooled. Even the best of people can be fooled. And you might be thinking, okay, what about people in the church that can be fooled? Same list. How can a preacher be fooled? Well, a preacher can think the best of someone and they not actually be who they say they are. And it's the same with anyone else. Deacons can be fooled. Elders could think that the preacher is who he says he is, but really the members and deacons know a side of the preacher that is not so good. Two-faced. These people can all be fooled. They can all be fooled. These people then, these governors, these satraps, they take their quarrel to the king. They've got a problem with Daniel. They don't want to go talking out. They go to the king. Now, can I go off for just a moment on a little soapbox because this is something that really bothers me. Can I please beg of you that if you ever have a problem with someone in the Lord's body, you go to them. Do not dare get into this business of gossiping about people, of talking about people in a way and in a fashion that they don't even know you're saying anything, and then the next time you see them, you be nice to their face. This is the epitome of hypocrisy in the Lord's church. And sometimes preachers can be the worst at it. They've got a problem with some preacher, and it might boil down to jealousy, it might boil down to something he's done, and rather than go talk to him, they just talk about it behind his back. But the next time they see him, they're going to be nice and friendly. God knows. Do you think that God didn't understand that these men had a problem with Daniel? And do you think that God had not given some type of formula even back then, before Matthew 18 would even be written and even discussed? You have a problem, you go to the person. This is killing the Lord's church. And I want to hit on some things in this. King Darius, live forever. I'm going to be honest, they flattered him. I don't genuinely know if they even meant any of this. Because you and I know people like this. They say what they need to say to get their plan carried out, right? They do what they need to do to put on the best front, and they fool people in the process. Darius, we're so grateful that you are the king, and we hope that you'll be the king forever. Forever. But we got something to ask you. Those of you that are still of the age that you can still do this, and those of you that remember doing it, you remember Mama and Daddy and how when you wanted to go do something, everyone knew which one they could go talk to first, right? For us, it was Mama, because we knew Mama would say yes to anything. And even if she didn't say yes, I was very manipulative in the fact that I'd go to Mom and I'd say, hey, I want to go spend the night at my friend's house. And she would say, well, it's okay with me if it's okay with your father. To which I would then go to my dad and say, Mom says it's okay with her. Is it okay with you? Wasn't necessarily wrong. It's just not what she said. It's just not the way she said it. But we all knew who to ask and who to sweet talk. They're sweet talking the king. Live forever. We really want you to make a decree, though a royal statute, a firm decree, that whoever asks any petition of any god or man for 30 days. So they want him to live forever, to make a firm decree for 30 days, and if he doesn't follow it, he's cast into the den of lions. Then they push him a little bit. Now, O king, establish the decree, sign the writing, that it be not changed, according to the law of Medes and Persians, which altereth not. Wherefore King Darius signed the writing in the decree. When I was growing up, my dad would sometimes tell me, Michael, don't push me. And what he meant by that was this: let me think about it. I might say, hey Dad, there's a new movie out. I'd really like to go see it. Do you think we could go Saturday? Well, I'll think about it. And that might be on Sunday. Monday night, you think we'll go to the movie? Well, I'm still thinking about it. Tuesday night, think we're going to the movie? Still thinking about it. Wednesday night, think we're still going to the movie, Dad? Is that possible? All the way up till Thursday night, he finally just says, we're not going now. Because you didn't let me tell you that we were going. And I told you to hold off. They're bullying the king right now. Establish this decree. Sign the writing. It be not changed. This law alters not. And he signs it. He signs it. And I know that if I were in the king's shoes, I'd be flattered. Because if I'm in a position of power, I want to know that the people over whom I'm ruling like me in that position of power. It's no different with a preacher. It's no different with an elder, a deacon, a member. Preacher wants to make sure that the congregation where he works likes him, that he's doing a good work there. Elders want to make sure that the congregation respects them, appreciates them. Same with deacons, same with members. The members want to be respected by the elders and the preacher and the deacons. Yet my praise is to be to the Lord and the Lord only. But Darius is not of this persuasion. He doesn't believe this. Live forever. Do what we want you to do. And then I am very careful to want to point out to King Darius, though, the last time something like this occurred, where a statue to the king was made. And Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego, or Hananiah, Mishael, and Azariah, said, we are not careful, Nebuchadnezzar, to answer you in this matter. If it be so, our God, whom we serve, is able to deliver us from the burning fiery furnace. Notice this, though. We serve not thy gods, nor worship the golden image which thou hast set up. Oh, if only people today would say the same thing. May my steps be worship. May my thoughts be praise. Oh God, you are my God, and I will follow you all of my days. You, singular. Step by step, you will lead me, singular. Too many people have a plurality of gods, and they're not even pagan in the sense that they're mythical gods. Their phone is a god to them. Their friends are gods to them. Their lives are gods because they serve them over the God. No doubt Darius had good intentions. He had good intentions. So did Hitler. When he started out, he had good intentions. It just doesn't mean they're the best. Notice these two quotes here. God save us from people who mean well. Vikram Seth wrote that in A Suitable Boy. And then T.S. Eliot said, most of the evil in this world is done by people with good intentions. Remember, Hitler had good intentions. How much evil did he do? A ton. Terrorists have good intentions for their doctrine. And how much evil is done at the hand of terrorism? A plethora of evil. God save us from people who mean well. We must not let intentions cloud our judgment and our praising of the Most High God. God is not going to allow His praise to be given to someone else without consequence. And then I have there the account of Baal. And when Elisha went after the people, when Elijah on Mount Carmel went after the prophets of Baal. 1 Kings 18, 21 through 40. But in the process of people wanting to destroy you, they can sometimes be fooled in the process. I've known of situations where preachers had good friends fooled because of men that spoke badly about them. But now, to the possibilities are endless mindset, people cannot destroy you. Undoubtedly, right now, things look bleak for Daniel. They look bleak. And those that even pray to the Lord. How can those that serve the Lord still pray? How? Surely they can't. Because God will kill them. And what I mean by that is, not that God will literally kill them, but their worship to God will kill them. So what? What now? No fear. No fear. Now when Daniel knew that the writing was signed, he understood this. That's important. Remember this, because it's not like Daniel could have prayed. Wouldn't this have been the easiest cop-out in the history of mankind? Daniel prays, and then they come to take him, and he goes, there's a decree? I didn't know. My bad. My bad, guys. That's on me. I should have read the decrees. I should open up my emails. My bad. Daniel knew. Without a shadow of a doubt, he knew. He goes into his house, and he went into his closet and prayed silently. Went out of his closet and began his reign of political correctness. Is that what your Bible says? No. His windows being opened, he knelt down upon his knees 3 times. Notice this, as he did aforetime. As he did aforetime. Political correctness is also killing the church. People that really do want to serve God, they understand homosexuality, abortion, transgenderism, on and on you could go, are wrong, but we best not speak out about it. Good intentions are not always the best thing. And a doctor, after scanning the patient, x-raying the patient for cancer, and happens to find it, could you imagine the lawsuit? Doctor scans the patient for cancer, finds out that they have malignant cancer, they have merely months left, maybe even days, because they caught it too late. Comes back in, you're fine. Nothing's wrong with you. Go on and live your life. Months go by and they begin to show that they have cancer. They go back to the doctor and say, what have you done? Look, I didn't want to hurt your feelings. I didn't want to tell you that. I mean, that's terrible news to find out someone has cancer. And I didn't want to tell you that and ruin your day. What would your first thought be? I'll tell you what mine would be, having been on the end of diagnosis before where something needed to be said. I appreciate the doctor telling me. But I'll tell you what I would have said if that had been the case for me. Are you crazy? How do you have the ability to practice medicine? How are you a doctor? You are insane. But we expect people to look at the soul's condition and see it riddled with sin, cancer, and just say, you're okay. You're okay. Daniel understands. He prays, and the men assemble and found Daniel praying and making supplication before God. Daniel's not ignorant. It didn't stop him from praying as was his custom. Psalm 55:17 has something to say about that as well. But then when you see the lurkers in verse 11, they're lurking. They're waiting to find Daniel praying. You know what else that tells me though about his prayer? It was out loud. Because they could hear him praying. Because if Daniel opens up his windows and just silently sits there, he could merely say, I was just thinking. I was just thinking. Is that a crime? They heard him praying. He was vocal. And he trusted that God would work things out in the end. And they're waiting and waiting and waiting. And verses 12 through 17, we'll sum them up. The governors and satraps, they go back before the king. They get amnesia. They get amnesia. King, did you sign a decree? Man, hold on, I'll get this. Hold on. Something about praying 30 days, lion's den. Didn't you sign a decree that states that anyone that didn't pray to you and they prayed to another god would be thrown into the lion's den? Yes, this thing is true according to the law of the Medes and Persians. It doesn't alter. That Daniel does not show you due regard, O king. Guess what? He shouldn't. It's not about Daniel showing regard to the king. It's about Daniel showing regard to the Most High God. And by the way, chapter 6 and verse 10, that's the second key verse for Daniel himself. Chapter 6, verse 10. But he makes his petition 3 times a day, and they inform him. The king finds this out, and he tries so hard to spare Daniel, but nothing can be done. And so they call for Daniel, and they put him into the lion's den. And in the midst of this, Darius says to Daniel, your God will deliver you. Your God, whom you serve continually, will deliver you. Go over to Daniel 6 for a moment. And verse 16. Didn't have the ability to put this into the PowerPoint because it was too large. But Daniel 6:16. And notice the last part. Thy God, whom thou servest continually, He will deliver you. I really, really believe, and I really, really wish the translators would have put a question mark after that. You know why? I'm going to tell you tonight that Darius does not mean a word of this. You might be thinking, well, hold on a minute. He said it. He said it. Yeah, he did. And haven't you ever looked at someone and said, everything will be all right? And you genuinely don't know if it will. Someone's dying of cancer, you say, everything will be all right. No, it won't. Not to them. But I'm going to argue even further. He didn't mean it at all. God will deliver you, I think. Maybe. Well, preacher, what do you mean by that? Drop down to verse 17. After the stone is brought, the purpose concerning Daniel might not be changed. Verse 18, the king goes back to the palace and he doesn't sleep. He doesn't call for the jesters. He doesn't call for the musicians. He doesn't call for anybody. He paces back and forth all night, and I guarantee you what he was thinking. Is Daniel okay? Is Daniel okay? Is Daniel okay? If he meant what he said, he would have had the best sleep of his life. He didn't think, I'll see Daniel tomorrow. It was, will I see Daniel tomorrow? Will he be here? I don't know. Now look at verse 20 though. Verse 20, Daniel, servant of the living God, is thy God. Is thy God, whom thou servest continually, able to deliver thee from the lions. They got that one right. They put it in a question. Let's break this down for a moment to you and to me. Have you ever given piece of news to somebody, or been given a piece of news by somebody. And in the back of your mind, you're thinking, will God make this okay? Last June, I mentioned before, I was diagnosed with Crohn's disease. And while it's manageable, it's not the easiest thing in the world for someone to live with, for sure. But I won't lie. One of the first thoughts I had was, how's this going to work out? Keep in mind, I was just about 6 months married at the time. I was told that if this got out of control, that I could get cancer, that I could die if I didn't take care of myself. And of course, the only thing I hear though is cancer and die. That's it. And I think that's natural for the human to hear. And I start to think, I've just married the love of my life and I'm going to give her my funeral. And so for a moment, I asked the question, will God deliver me from this? Is it going to happen? Have you ever asked that? Your loved one dies, will God make this better? You lose your job, anything terrible happens to you, and you just sit there and think, is God there? Does God care? He does. I believe wholeheartedly that if Daniel had not answered with the way that he answered in verse 21 and 22, that the king would have never, ever, even for a moment, made the written decree that he would make later in this chapter. If Daniel had been thrown into the lion's den as he was, and had been mauled by the lions as he could have been, and had been found dead, Darius would have actually believed his statement of God will deliver you. No, he won't. But do you know that people in the world today have forgotten the idea of sometimes bad things happen to good people? And too many people today see negative things occurring and negative things taking place, and they attribute it to God must not exist. All the suffering in the world, and where's God? He's watching it too. But if you ever need comfort about your serving God and about your continuing to serve God, remember verse 22. My God, verse 22, has sent his angel, and he shut the lions' mouths, that they've not hurt me. For as much as before him innocency was found in me, and also before thee, O king, have I done no hurt. Listen, king, it's not my fault that this happened. I haven't done anything wrong at all. No matter what is thrown our way, God is on our side. He's on our side. He's going to keep you safe if you serve him. Psalm 86:15. In Matthew 10:28 says, fear not man, but fear God, who can kill both body and soul. Daniel had the same mindset of his three friends. If I die, I die. I've heard this week Lakin and Maylee singing different spiritual songs. And one of them that I heard was Hard Fighting Soldier. One of the verses of that song says, if I die, oh let me die in the service of my Lord. What a way to go. And if I die, for it to be on the battlefield is an honor. And if you're serving God and you're worried, need not worry. This too shall pass. It'll go. I look back on some of the problems I had when I was 16, 17, and I laugh. Facebook and this other app called Time Hop show you statuses that you've posted years gone by. On this day 7 years ago, you said this. On this day 6 years ago, you said this. And I read those statuses sometimes and I just chuckle. And sometimes I just laugh hard. Because I'm like, that was a problem? What? I was mad because some girl I like didn't message me back? Wow. Okay. Man, my world was ending though at that time because I thought that was it. As I've gotten older and as the problems have become more serious, as adulthood does bring, problems now are, hey, your car got hit by a tree. How are you going to fix it? That's a lot more difficult than, oh, some girl I like didn't message me back on Facebook or didn't text me. Because that wasn't thousands of dollars. And so you deal with it. But I look back on some of these problems that we fixed and we found the solution and I think, we got it then. And any problem, and I want to stress this, because we get defeated too easily today because we live in a world that's increasingly wicked and we see that and we forget about the other side. But any problem that can come your way today is nothing. I have cancer. I understand that that's difficult, believe me. But it is nothing if you are serving God faithfully. For Daniel, the possibilities were endless. And it didn't matter what kings, what governors, what satraps tried to do to him, God would protect him. And Daniel didn't once hesitate. We remember stories like Rosa Parks. You need to go to the back of the bus. I'm not going. We remember stories like Jackie Robinson. No black players are in Major League Baseball. I'll play. We remember stories like Martin Luther King Jr. And for decades to come, these people will be discussed. Their values will be passed down. Don't let the values of the church fall by the wayside. Stand for something and trust that if you face opposition, God's going to make it okay. Not miraculously, but through providence. But remember this too, because I love this. Remember that even Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego said, God may choose to not save us. They understood that their serving the Lord could have cost them their lives. Notice that Paul didn't miraculously keep himself alive. He died for the cause of Christ. What makes me different from them? Just the year in which I live. That's it. I'm a servant just like they are. I should want to serve God just like they did, whatever consequence comes my way. And to realize that the possibilities are endless. But Michael, you could die. Let me die in the service of my Lord. Maybe you're here tonight and you're not living for God like you ought to be. You don't have the heart of a lion. You're not doing what God would want you to do. You're not being what God would want you to be. And you're asking yourself, well, Michael, can I change? And I know I've said that multiple times this week, but it could be the fact that someone's grappling with this. Can I change? Absolutely. Absolutely. Jeffrey Dahmer is a name that many of you will remember. Famous serial killer. Did you know that to the best of our knowledge, he died a Christian? And I know the man that helped convert him. His name is Garland Elkins. And one of his tracks, I believe, made it all the way to Jeffrey Dahmer, who was baptized for the remission of his sins, and to my knowledge, is in paradise right now. Michael, he's a serial killer. No, not anymore. He's a child of God. And if that type of person can change for the better, you can too. And if you need to, be baptized, of course, having heard the Word of God, believing that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, repenting of the sins in your life, confessing that Jesus is who He said He was and did what He said He would do, being baptized, fully immersed, washed in a watery grave, on your way to live faithfully, then you can do all those things. But if you're having trouble with the living faithfully part, I beg, I plead, I implore to look at your life and be ready to meet God whenever, as together we stand and sing.